Welcome back to the Boozers Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Amir Motamani. I'm joined today by my two co-hosts, Panos and Neil. And we have a special guest today, my cousin, Darian. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
I'm amazing.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Super excited to have my cousin on here, a new guest. He actually has his own basketball podcast as well. So just wanted to see if you want to give a quick plug to your podcast.
Yeah, just follow me subscribe on YouTube, Dime Dropper Podcast, and then Apple Podcast and Spotify. And then, of course, on social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, at Dime Dropper Pod. And yes, focus on LA teams mainly and LA sports, but also just the league as a whole. I go live after every single finals game and playoff game for the most part. So, and NBA history, I'm really big on that. So that's my majority of my content.
Huge. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description to his podcast. So he's a Clippers fan specifically, and we got our phony fake resident Laker fan over here, aka Mr. Beantown, Boston Celtics over here, which I will never let go, as we've seen in former episodes that Mr. George over here is rooting for the Celtics as a Lakers fan, and he's doing that often, which I don't know if you guys know what that reference is, but yeah, the famous I say GIF or GIF, whatever, but the famous Larry Bird shaking the towel, and this guy's been sending in our group chat just
not just me.
Oh man, that's what he was doing. Oh my goodness,
that's the reference right there again.
So is Vonnie.
Yeah, but Vonnie's a Rockets fan. He has a reason to not like the Warriors because of recent history, right? Playing them a few times in the playoffs and getting so close to actually beating them. But you choosing hating the Warriors more than the Celtics, Joe, and you're like you're a fan like of basketball, like a historian. You like modern basketball. So yeah, I don't know, Darian. What do you think?
I hate both teams, by the way.
That's fair, but the fact that you could still root for the Celtics over the Warriors, that you have a bigger disdain for the Warriors, makes no sense to me. Darian, what do you think from someone who grew up in Los Angeles, whose whole family loves the Lakers? Like you and I are the only ones in our family who don't. So, quick thoughts. And someone who actually went to UMass, so he's actually lived, in that area as well. He's been to games. So just like how blasphemous, I love using that word. How blasphemous is it that Panos is a freaking Boston Celtics freaking fan?
I wouldn't call him a fan, but no, I mean, I gave the same amount of shit to one of my friends that was kind of saying a similar thing, but he's not as hardcore. Dude, the Lakers and the Celtics, I mean, that's the one team, if you're a Laker fan, you can't root for them to win championships because it's the one rivalry in the history of the league that has lasted the test of time. Whether it's the 60s, the 80s, or the 2000s, you've experienced it. Now, they're always in a never-ending battle for who has more championships. If the Celtics win this championship, they go back ahead of the Lakers. And that's the one thing. It's like, if I'm a Laker fan, I want to have the claim to be the best franchise ever. And they may still have that claim even if the Celtics get 18. But, man, it's a lot stronger when it's tied. And not only that, just, Laker fans don't like the Celtics, but the way the Celtics Boston fans are, they're very, very hard. Like, they do not mess with the Lakers at all. Like, they can't stand them. I used to try to, and I'm a Clipper fan, but I used to try to bring up, whenever I brought up Kobe, first thing people would say, rape, every time. Brought up Magic Johnson, first thing people would say, AIDS. No, I couldn't even talk about Laker players over there in Massachusetts. I couldn't. They wouldn't entertain it. They wouldn't even listen. They would just grill them. So, I mean, I just wish more Laker fans were sitting next to me in those moments, getting exposed to the trash talk. Because it's like, you just would never want those guys to win anything. Like, it's a historic rivalry, and I just think it's sacrilegious to root for them, regardless of how much Tatum loves Kobe. At the end of the day, he's still wearing that green. So that's my piece on that.
Thanks for using that word, sacrilege. I'm going to use that as well, along with blasphemy in every podcast until the finals are over, Panos. So yeah, thanks.
It'll be over in 3 more games.
Thanks for that input. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it could. Yeah, I mean, I hate the Celtics.
So it doesn't even bother you that the Celtics going to pass the Lakers in rings, like.
No, not really, because the Lakers outside of the bubble, Amir likes to call it the fake ring or whatever you want to call it, the Mickey Mouse ring. It doesn't bother me. Really, it doesn't. It's just, I don't know, maybe I'm a different Laker. I'm not as crazy as the other ones. I'm a huge Lakers fan, but I also like good teams. Like when the Spurs had their team going on with their big three and Duncan, I appreciate their game, like their style of play. Popovich was a great coach. They had a great setup there. I mean, yeah, this Boston team is a little bit younger, but I don't know. It's just something about him that's young. Like they're fighting. They knocked out KD. They knocked out Giannis. They took the Heat to Game 7. And I don't know. I like Tatum and the way he admired Kobe.
They're a likable team.
Yeah, but not from a Laker fan's perspective. Not a good enough pitch. Panels. You're not in sales.
I don't have my pre-workout.
You're not. He's the Panels. Yeah. He's a nurse. He's not a salesperson, so he didn't do a good job of selling his reason for being sacrilege. But moving on. So usually before we like to start our segments, we typically this is the Boozers Basketball Podcast where I like to always say where we sometimes drink booze, getting a little bit older, so don't do it often. And we don't do it on weekdays, but today's a special occasion. So before we get into recap of Game 3 versus the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors, which the Celtics won 116-100. Let's go around the horn and see what everybody's drinking today. Let's start off with Neil.
I have a Firestone Mind Haze IPA. Firestone is a California brewery, so repping for your state, the three of you. So that's what I'm drinking today.
There we go. No New York brewery this time. I like it. Switching it up. All right. Darian, what are you drinking today?
I just went to my fridge and saw what I could find, and it was Heineken. So I guess I don't typically drink Heineken, but it's Heineken today. So,
dude, you're like 20. How are you? 23, 24?
23.
You gotta have something stronger than that. Come on, man.
I tell you what, like Stella.
Stronger than that. Come on, we need like some sort of IPA, some whiskey, some
hard alcohol
mixed drink, or no. I mean like a stronger beer. That's like you're drinking. You're hydrating, so it's fine.
Yeah. No, you're right. Maybe I can make it sub.
Panos, what you got today?
Well, I don't drink, so it's my fresh water. I don't know where it's from. Pure Life.
Is that from the source, from the mountains, the springs?
Lake Minnetonka, I think.
Lake Minnetonka, purest water ever. Awesome. All right, I am drinking I am very basic today. I'm drinking some natural sparkling rosé Pinot Noir. I'm not drinking the whole bottle. It's just a glass and a half. This is from Scribe Winery. My best bud Cheyenne gave this to me for my birthday back in April. So my wife is pregnant, so I don't really drink wine by myself. So that's why I've had this bottle since April. Normally I would be drinking it with her. So decided to finally open it up today. And my buddy Cheyenne knows my taste and that I love sparkling rosé. So excited to have that today. So cheers.
Hi, Cheyenne.
Hi, Cheyenne. We'll see you soon. But cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks for hopping on. So yeah, big Game 3 last night between the Celtics and the Warriors. Boston bounced back in a big way. They have still in this playoffs not lost 2 games consecutively. The last time they lost 2 games consecutively was back in March during the regular season. So super impressive to keep that streak alive. So big storyline is that they have held home court advantage, which they stole early on in the series. So big game and kudos to the Celtics, even though I hate them. Another big storyline, which we can talk about a little bit later, is Steph Curry possibly getting injured, tweaking his ankle on a play where Al Horford landed on his foot. So looks like he's going to be okay. But that could be a huge factor moving forward, right? Like Steph has been pretty spectacular so far in these 3 games, averaging, I think, like 32 points, shooting pretty well. And he's, I wouldn't say due, but it's possible where he can have a bad shooting game. And if that happens, the way Draymond's been playing and the way that some of the role players have been playing, like Poole, he's not scoring as much in the series because they're playing against one of the best defenses and a lot of length, one of the best rotational defenses in the NBA. If he has trouble scoring, then who knows how long this series can last. And I'm hoping my prediction of Warriors in 6, which I said I might adjust to Warriors in 7, can stand true, right? I'm not entirely sure. We'll see, right? Big game, must win for the Warriors, I think, and I'm sure you all agree. Game 4. But just let's start off with Neil. What were your thoughts on Game 3?
I think for a 16-point game, there was a lot of interesting things that came to light here. I really liked how Jaylen Brown took the onus on himself early in the game to take things over. We've talked a lot about Boston's turnovers. They got that under control. They had a big first half lead. And then what we've seen happen throughout this series is that Golden State made their run in the third quarter. They took the lead, and Boston was able to sustain despite that. They took the punch from the Warriors, came back, and absolutely dominated the fourth quarter. So I thought that was a really impressive win by Boston. But if I'm Golden State, I don't feel terrible. I mean, Draymond Green is a non-factor, but you got Klay Thompson starting to show what he's about. Steph continues to roll. You did mention that he might be due for a bad game, but I'm not as concerned as you are about that. The bigger question is, what are we going to get from Klay? Like, was that his one game a series that he breaks out, or is this the sign of something more consistent? But I expected Boston to win game 3, just like I expect Golden State to win game 4. I think they're going to renew the desperation on the defensive end. And Boston has given you no reason to believe that they can string 2 solid performances together. They could just go back to turning the ball over all the time. And if Golden State is playing better defense and they put up like 110, they can easily take the game. So I think Golden State isn't completely buried yet. And if Klay Thompson becomes more consistent and plays like he did in game 3, in game 4, I really think they got a shot to take it.
Yeah, and it's like Boston still had 12 turnovers, which is not great. They had 18 in the last game, and that contributed to a lot of points off turnovers, which helped the Warriors win last game because they shot decently well again, right? And like this whole series, they've shot pretty decent. So yeah, I mean, it just, if they can cut those turnovers even further and get to like 7 turnovers, 8 turnovers, 10, then Boston can be really difficult to beat, right? Especially because they're just so good defensively and they have so much firepower offensively. So yeah, we'll see. It should be a fun game for Panos. What were your thoughts on that game?
I mean, yeah, like Neil said in the beginning, Brown took it upon himself to take over the first half, which was great. What I do like about the second half, though, is we knew, everyone here knows the Warriors are like a third quarter team, right? They're just going to come out and start destroying, knocking down threes. But they took their punch, like Neil said. They came back. Tatum was able to get his rhythm going, started driving in, started drawing some fouls. The one thing that stands out to me, though, is the rebounds. It was like 47 to like 30 rebounds, right? The only big they really have that gets playing time is Looney. They have Horford, they have Robert Williams. I don't think Theis played in this game, but like they were just, and they were creating second chance points with the offensive boards too. I think they had more than double the offensive boards the Warriors did. So like, I know you mentioned the turnovers, they had 12. Marcus Smart had 5 of those turnovers. If he cuts it down, even if they were to cut it down, I think that lead would be a little bit bigger because Steph was Steph. He got his. Klay got going. Jordan Poole is still like MIA, right? He hasn't really showed up, knock off the bench really, except he gets pretty cocky once he hits like 1 or 2 3-pointers, especially that half court shot in game 2. But other than that, he hasn't really been an impact. Andrew Wiggins didn't score as much, but he was a defensive like threat. He did have 2 steals and 2 blocks. I mean, but it's tough. And like, I'm not going to talk about Draymond because he's a non-factor. Like the guy doesn't do anything. Like, it's funny. Like they'll just say like, he yells like 600 times during the match, claps like 1,700 times, 6 fouls. I mean, I'm surprised the guy doesn't get 2 technicals a game. Like it's ridiculous how he hasn't been ejected from one of these games yet.
Yeah, he's held to a different standard. Neil and I talked about that in the last pod. And I love that you brought up rebounds as one factor that Boston just crushed them on the offensive boards, right? They had like 16 offensive boards. I think they were plus 17 in that battle. It's funny. Pat Riley has 2 sayings, and I don't know if this Faker fan even knows what those 2 sayings are, because you should love the Godfather as much as I do, because he's one of the GOATs and one of the most sexy men in basketball history as a player, coach, and executive. And one of the first actual players to win a championship as a coach, an assistant coach and a head coach on a team that he played for and won a championship with. And then he won 2 more as an executive. I don't know how many other players / coaches / executives have won rings like the GOAT, the Godfather, Pat Riley, but he has a few sayings, which one I've mentioned on the podcast before. Playoffs tell. And I'm going to always bring up the Heat as much as I can, because I'm in my heart of hearts, I wish this was a Heat podcast, right? And a hater Faker podcast as well. If I could split the time and talking shit on the Lakers and talking all about Miami Heat. I would love it. But he says playoffs tell. And going back to the Heat, Bam was fine because he's so good defensively. But Tyler Hero, he showed why he's not ready yet. And he's not going to get that max because playoffs tell, right? Your inconsistencies and your flaws show up in the playoffs. And so, but the other saying he says is rebounds win you rings. And I was listening to my cousin's podcast last night or this morning that he had, or he does recaps live, YouTube lives after every single game on game nights. And he said the same thing because he knows history and he understands that Pat Riley is a godfather. And he mentioned that too. And I was going to, prepping for this podcast today, I was going to mention that. And I heard this podcast at lunch and he mentioned that same exact quote that rebounds win you rings. And I was like, God damn it, man. I don't want to like sound like I'm copying you, but he's like, dude, you know the history. I love Pat Riley. So the rebounding thing was huge, man, like super huge. And so Darian, what adjustments do you think the Celtics made, I guess, just from game 2? Like, what did you see schematically and just like how did they improve to win this game at home? And also, they haven't been playing that great at home. They were 5-4 going into this game. They're now 6-4 at home, 8-3 on the road. So what do you think they did really well yesterday and what adjustments did they make?
To be honest, I don't know if they made that many big adjustments, but I think they were just riding the home crowd. And as Neil said, Jalen set a tone. He did the same thing in game 2, though, in the first quarter. But the defense of the Celtics, sharp as always. I just think that, yeah, I think their intensity was high. And then, you know, the guy like the Time Lord, he was blocking a lot of shots, really a presence around the basket. But I don't think the Celtics defensively did anything too crazy. I honestly think it's the Warriors defense that was bad. Like I think Jalen and Jason Tatum were getting things way too easily. Like they were getting to the paint, driving and kicking. Jalen Brown had not even just like 8 points in the first quarter, like 3 assists. He was kicking the ball out. Horford hit an open 3. So I think it was more that the Warriors defense was kind of soft in the first quarter. And I don't think the Celtics actually adjusted too much. Obviously they didn't play Tice. That was an adjustment. They just didn't play him at all. And I think that was a good adjustment by Udoka. But honestly, I think that Jalen and Jason Tatum played well. Oh, and Marcus Smart. That was the biggest change. 2 points the other night, 24 in game 3. So Marcus Smart was way more impactful. And when you got 3 guys with 20 plus points at home and your defense is as good as the Celtics are, you're going to have a good chance of winning. And yeah, as far as the Warriors though, you know, as you guys said, Draymond Green, he can't be playing like this. He just can't unless Jordan Poole drops 20 because Steph and Clay, as Neil said, are giving last night. They gave you what you needed scoring wise. Although we can have a conversation about Steph in the fourth quarters, both losses, he's had like 30 points going into the fourth. And then in the fourth, he hasn't had much going for him. It's been really tough for him to get shots. So that's all I got to say on that. I think the Celtics, the biggest thing was the rebounding, as you said, no rebounds, no rings, as Riles says. That was big. And it's been big in every series, the Dallas Warriors series, the Grizzlies Warriors series, and even in this series. And as Panos, is that how you say his name? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
You could say it wrong. He's a Celtics fan now as a Laker fan, so it's fine.
As he was saying, though, double digit, you have twice the amount of offensive rebounds and over 10 more rebounds than they do. Obviously, that part of it's because you're forcing the Warriors into misses. But yeah, the rebounding stat tells you oftentimes a lot about the final score. So
yeah. And so since you're our special guest today, I'm going to ask you a few follow-up questions. So Steph in the third, so first quarter, it was plus 11 Celtics. Jalen Brown had 17 points.
Yeah.
Celtics shot from the gate 3 for 4, up 10-2, 12-4. They were plus 11, plus 1 in the second. Going into half, they're up 12. In the third quarter, they're up, I believe at one point 14 or 15. Or no, actually 18. They went up to 18.
17 or 18.
17 or 18, right? Then the Berserker Barrage, I forgot what video game that's from. Oh, that's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Marvel was Capcom. Let's go, baby.
Wow.
Don't play as much video games anymore, but I was like, wait, that's a memory. The Berserker Barrage of threes and just better defense and intensity by the Warriors brought them back, and some costly turnovers. Smart still had 5 turnovers, man. He's got to clean that shit up. He was way more effective, better passing than game 2. Played way better, but still some just bad turnovers, bad early shot clock shots. Celtics, settle for the 3 a lot. But yeah, Steph had 15 points in that third quarter, and he hit a big shot, which put him up 83-82 with a few minutes left. But Celtics took that punch, as you guys mentioned, and ended the quarter +4. So what happened, do you think, in the fourth quarter? What did you see defensively? Like you said, Steph has done this where he scored a shit ton of points in the first 3 quarters. What did you see defensively? Like, why was it hard for Steph to get buckets in that fourth quarter?
Because I think that the Celtics put Marcus Smart on him, and he wasn't switching that easily, only switching when he really needed to. And they have so many guys that can make life tough for Steph, with Jalen, with Tatum, with Smart. And they weren't switching Horford onto him at all, or the Time Lord, but it was mainly, to me, Smart just fighting through the screens. And the main difference too is, as we know, watching basketball for so many years, especially in the playoffs, sometimes in the fourth quarter, the refs swallow the whistle a little bit. And when you guys have been watching basketball for a while, and a lot of modern fans my age try to ignore this, but when guys, especially guards, get hand checked and they let them do it, you see how hard it is to create separation when it's a 6'4", 200-pound guy hand checking a guy like Curry. He wasn't creating much separation. His one shot came on like this amazing step back on Grant Williams, but he's working so hard to score. And that's something that I'm thinking about. Like, it's not even his fault, really. It's like, there's a reason why, and if you look back at any team that's won a championship ever, there's a reason why only Steph Curry has been 6'3", best scorer consensus on his team. Like, we look at other teams that have their best players be that height, Isaiah Thomas with Detroit, or like even, I don't even think Chauncey Billups was a consensus. Like, there's a lot, like Rasheed Wallace was so good. You could argue a lot of guys on that team, but Isaiah was the man for his Pistons teams. But
Iverson.
But they didn't win a championship. That's
you're referring to championship. Sorry.
Only championship. And Isaiah Thomas, at least with Dumars and like the microwave and those guys, and Mark Aguirre's, like, they weren't that many points behind in terms of the difference. Whereas Steph in 2015, when he won his championship before KD, he averaged 10 more points than Klay. Like, it was very clear he was the best scorer. Steph is so unique that he's been able to do this, but I'm always of the belief that if your best attribute is scoring and you're 6'3" or under, and you're the best scorer on the team, there are some limitations. There are some, because you're going to get the best defenders in the other team, and you're going to get, in the highest levels, the refs are going to be a little bit tougher. And Steph, I think the problem is he struggles to create great looks when you have teams that can switch a lot. And obviously it doesn't make it any easier when Draymond Green, like, he's creating advantages though, Steph. Like, he's drawing 2 defenders no matter what, for sure. But it sucks when Draymond Green can't punish that. So, it's hard for him to get the shot that Mike took in the fourth, or the Larry Birds or the Kobe's that were able to post up guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's still different. So that's what I think mainly is it's just harder for him to create separation.
Yep, makes sense. And going to good segue for Draymond, Neil. What do you think about his performance? Just honestly, what do you have? 2 points, 3 rebounds, couple assists. Just what do you think changed from game 2, where he was more aggressive, more effective defensively, like he was, doing all of his antics. But what do you think changed, like, in game 3? Like, why do you think he performed the way he did?
Well, offensively, I'm not too surprised.
Right.
He is clearly a diminished player offensively, and he hasn't even fallen from a place where he was like a huge scorer. But that's a great question. And it's hard to explain, honestly. I can't explain it. I mean, you're in game 3 of the NBA Finals. You expect your, I guess, leader, your spiritual leader, the guy who brings energy, who brings passion, who gets in the other team's head, under their skin, all of that stuff. You expect him to have a huge game, at least defensively. And it's just, I can't even explain it, to be honest with you. It's really disappointing, but if he's a true champion, you expect him to come back. I mean, game to game, we see so many wild swings and momentum, and you just expect a better performance from him. You have to feel like Steve Kerr's in his ear, but offensively, I'm not surprised. He's just not a player you can rely on to even get to double digits at this point.
Yeah, what surprised me more is the rebounds. I know he was like, they took out Looney. He only played 17 minutes. He was pretty effective, 6.7 rebounds. But Draymond has a knack for getting defensive rebounds, sometimes offensive rebounds. And so with him being their 5, I just don't understand how he wasn't able to get more than, was it 2 rebounds or whatever it was? I was just completely surprised. Panos, what do you think? Do you think he was, in game 2, the antics worked, the double techs, got under the skin of the young players. Do you think he's like focusing too much on the flailing, being chippy versus just focusing on playing straight up effective defense? Like, do you think he was just playing too much of a villain role in that game to like not realize like I need to work on the fundamentals and do the things that I do effectively, which is on ball defense, getting rebounds, playmaking? What do you think?
Honestly, I don't know.
You hate him. Tell the truth.
I mean, yeah, I
Speak your truth. I know you
fucking
hate
hate that clown, dude. They call him Donkey for a reason. Like, I mean, from Shrek.
I've never seen Shrek, by the way, but
Yeah, I mean,
That's
just
crazy.
watch a little clip. You'll know what I'm talking about. But like, dude, yeah, like the people are like, there's comments about him being more interested in this podcast, and you know how he has that inside crew contract after his contract's over with the NBA. He's gonna probably take over Barkley's spot, right? But like, dude, you're an NBA player. You're like, you won 3 titles. Like, you should learn how to adjust, right? But also with him, like, he's in his early 30s, right? Maybe after all these years, you know, all those miles on his body, it's taken a toll on him. I honestly think the Celtics are just younger, faster, more physical with them now. They're out rebounding them. I don't see it. Who's their tallest guy outside of Looney? Because they went small ball, right? What is Andrew
Wiggins? Probably
yeah,
6'8".
Wiggins, right?
Probably
I
Wiggins.
mean,
yeah.
And then you have Robert Williams, who literally hobbling like on one knee for the entire series.
Bingo. Yeah, Robert Williams really disrupted everything. Game to game, you don't know what you're going to get, because in game 2, Robert Williams looked like he couldn't even be playable. And then he comes back in game 3, has a tremendous game. He's providing all the rim protection you could ask for, and completely playing blocks? Draymond's role better than he is.
4 blocks. Yeah, Mr. Forrest Gump over here. Life's like a box. Life is like a box of chocolates with Robert Williams. You never know what you're going to get, right?
Yeah, but like going back to like Green, like he hasn't had a great series at all. He's a liability on offense right now. He's not getting the boards that you need for him to get. He's not being as aggressive. Yes, he's chirping away, and I'm surprised he still hasn't been ejected from one of these games still. But I mean, the Boston fans kind of gave it to him after he got fouled out, right? Like,
well, that's another story too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just my take on it.
So, okay, you mentioned one thing. So I want to ask the crew over here, the podcast, that there's some controversy around that. I have my opinion. Darian, what do you think about Draymond focusing on podcast after the game? Are you concerned with that? Like, should he just dial in? Like, I know old school 90s, like, or even Kobe would like never do something like that, right? But like, as a millennial, like this day and age with technology and the way we share information and social media, it's so different. And so like, I don't know, just what's your general opinion on his podcast? Because he's getting some shit from fans and non-fans. So
my general opinion is that I don't think it's actually the reason why he's playing bad. I don't think he lacks focus per se on the game. I don't think that the podcast, because as he says, it only takes 30 minutes to do it. I don't think that it's taking away from his ability to play well or all that. But I have an issue with it because it's just, as you said, like growing up with a guy like Kobe or that kind of mentality, it's just not how I was brought up. Like, to me, if you play so badly, you don't show your face. Like, to me, like you lock in and you let your game do the talking. Like, to me, let's say it was a Clipper player doing this, right? Let's say it was like Marcus Morris Sr. is shooting poorly and then he's going to record a podcast. I'd be like, dude, I get you have good analysis, but I don't care about your analysis. I want to see you make a jump shot, like that, straight up. And it's like, if Draymond wants to say like, oh, I was at the gym today, you know what I'm saying? If you want to say that, I was already at the gym. We're not seeing any progression. We're not seeing anything. Like, it sucks with Draymond because he used to, like, going back and watching 2015 and 16 Draymond is going to be so weird now, like to see him hit those shots. Even to remember that in game 7 of 2016, he was like, how many threes did he hit? Like, it's insane. We've seen him shoot well before, but he's just become this offensive liability, and it's insane. And I just don't care to hear it anymore. Like, it's just cringy to me. Like, you go home after 2 points and you're going to go break down the game that you played like ass in. Like, I get it. That's your form of accountability, but I don't want to hear it. Like, I just go show me what your play. If you want to break down why you guys lost the series or won after the series, go for it, man. Do summer pods. Like, I have no problem with players podcasting, but in the middle of a playoff series, in the middle of the NBA finals, when you play so badly, I just have an issue with how are you not embarrassed, dude? Like, I just don't get it.
I'm sure he is though. He's such a competitor, man.
He is, but like, I don't get it. If you're that embarrassed, like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, one, it's funny that you mentioned Marcus Morris Sr. I guess you're trying to compare. You're not trying to say Kawhi because one, wherever his laugh is, I can't see him and his personality doing a podcast.
Neither would Senior, but I don't even know who on our team would do that. But I'm just using anyone as an example. Like, I just don't use Senior because he's our starting 4. So
right,
I wouldn't want to hear it. I just want to hear it.
I thought you would say maybe a Paul George or something, but yeah.
Even if Paul did, I wouldn't want to hear it either. Like, just when we're in the finals, man, you lock in, and I'm not saying he's not locked in, but like the extras, you let your game do the talking. All that is like, we don't need to. I don't care to hear it, man. You go show me you can hit a jump shot first before you analyze the game. I know that sounds harsh, but it's how I feel. Like, seriously.
Completely fair. That's a completely valid point. I mean,
I was hard on myself when I lost intramural games. You know what I'm saying? I can imagine if I had an audience of millions in the finals. Like, I don't know. That's just how I was. Everybody can be different, though. So,
yeah, I mean,
he's also setting himself up for slander. I want to say that too.
Oh, for sure. Because talking shit to like Grant Williams and those fools, and then like you're like, you want to be me or whatever he said, and like he got 2 points, 3 rebounds, like 2 assists the following game.
And this is the guy that said that to Paul Pierce, man. He was like, "Yeah, no, they don't like you like Kobe. Like, bro, you can't even hold a candle to Paul Pierce. Like,
God, I fucking hate Paul Pierce and freaking Mr. Diarrhea too as well.
I don't know why everybody keeps bringing that up like he wasn't joking.
Whatever. I mean, and I respected his game. I actually kind of liked him a little bit, but then I don't know, later in his career, probably because they started playing the Heat in those playoffs, right?
I mean, he had a game winner against you guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't have a strong opinion because it's like, hey, the game's what time's the game? It's 9 p.m. East Coast time. The game ends at like close to midnight. Like, what else am I supposed to do? Sleep? Like, watch game film? He said, like, yeah, but of course I'm gonna watch film the next day and practice and do some shit. Like, some people objectively just, I don't know what it is. Also, we think that there's guys that are not hungry. Like, forget Kobe and Mamba mentality, where that guy's like at the gym at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then 6 o'clock in the morning, and then 9 o'clock, and then on the you forget that. But like, there are players like probably like a Rondo or like fuck Simmons. I'm not going to give him any credibility, but there's players that like are inconsistent shooters that probably work on it. They're just like, there's just for some reason it's life. Life's not fair. You don't get that stroke. Like, I can't imagine if like going into your office instead of going to your computer, opening up your email and then going on Zoom, like if that's like my like going into the office. If my going into the office was like going to the gym every day, I would objectively think that I would be like, I could shoot from half court and become like Steph. But like, that's not the truth necessarily, right? I'm sure there's a lot of these guys appreciate where they're at. They value the hard work and the ethic. They're there for a reason. So I don't think it's as simple as like just Draymond going to the gym and shoot some shots. I'm sure he's doing it. There's just like a psychological aspect. You got to give credibility to defenders. Like, just like there's only 5,000 players that have ever played in the NBA. Like, and I know you've mentioned in your pod, like respecting different eras and saying like JJ Redick slandering Bob Cousy, saying he played against plumbers and firemen. I say that as a joke too, but like maybe more so in the 30s and 40s, but like they were the best of their era. Like, they were still like only a few hundred out of millions of people that tried to make it to the NBA. So you got to give credit to these peeps. But anyway, I don't have a strong opinion on it. I can go either way of saying like, what else is he going to do? It's midnight. He's in his room for 30 minutes. Like, he's still pissed off. Like, we know he's passionate and he cares, but also it's like, also you should be locked in and be pissed off. And like, why do you want to like even have time to like give your thoughts and analysis when you played shitty? So I don't know. We'll see.
It remains to be seen because this series isn't over yet. Maybe he has a better game 4, better game 5. So
he had a better game 2. Game 1, he was terrible. Game 2, he played pretty well. Another thought.
But Darian, you made a lot of good points. Like, I didn't really have a strong opinion either, but listening to what you were saying, just be angry and go back and lock in. You don't need to be recording content while you're in the middle of the NBA finals. I think that's completely fair and valid.
Yeah, I agree. And staying on the topic of Draymond, Draymond's wife and Clay complained about the Celtics fans, and Mr. Dime Dropper over here, Darian, talked about how shitty the Celtics fans are. We all know how shitty they are.
Well, I want to clarify this about the Celtics fans. This is what I'll say about Boston Celtics fans. Celtics in particular, not Boston in general, even though they're all the same, but the Celtics fans, there's really it's a divide. The old school Celtics fans have seen the titles. They've seen Larry Bird and all these things. They have a very high standard, but they've also known that it took 22 years to return to that. So there's a little bit of a more humbleness that they have than Laker fans. The newer Celtics fans act like they've never seen their team win anything. Like they're like, they don't have the standard that my Laker fan friends that grew up watching Kobe have. So to me, with the Celtics fans, they don't have this arrogance that the Laker fans do. They have that when it comes to Boston sports as a whole or the New England Patriots. With the New England Patriots, they have this arrogance, like complete arrogance. But the Celtics fans, like, they're not as in your face as you might think. But I will say this though, they're great at bringing the atmosphere at the games live. But like, I'll give an example. In 2018, that was my first year at UMass. Celtics made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We're one game away from beating LeBron's Cavs and going to the finals. And still, the amount of talk that throughout the year about Boston Celtics basketball was equivalent or less than Lonzo Ball's rookie season with the Lakers. Like, that's just how much people in LA care about basketball. Like, it's just more of a basketball city, even though Boston is way more of a sports city. But Celtics fans are great fans, but as arrogant as they are, to me, they don't hold a candle to the Laker fans as in terms of arrogance. That's just my take on that.
That's a good point. But yeah, it's funny that Clay mentioned just generally that he was the obscenities that they were saying mainly towards Draymond. He mentioned that. And then Draymond's wife, I don't know if you guys saw the tweet that she mentioned that, like, I can't believe they're saying this, like being so derogatory, saying F you to Draymond, blah, 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 blah. She said that like Warrior fans would never do that. What are your thoughts on that? Because like my opinion is that there are shitty fans for every sport globally. There are shitty Niner fans. I'm a Heat fan. I'm a Giants fan. There are assholes that want to start shit that are not, it's not always ghetto people, but like there's always shitsters from every team across the globe, right? Like literally there are hooligans everywhere. What are your thoughts on that? Like she was saying the Warriors fans would never do that, which is pretty funny because I saw a video from weeks ago when they were like the fans were throwing shit at Chuck.
Yeah.
He was rooting for the not the Celtics, but the Mavericks. And there's also a video I saw, which I don't hate LeBron as much anymore. He left my team. I was pissed off. Not 1, not 2, not 7. He left prematurely, went to 4 finals in a row. That was super fun. I got pissed off when he left, honestly. But he got some slander. I've seen a YouTube video where someone called him some derogatory names, a Celtic or Warrior fan I think it was in Oakland before they went to Chase. But it's like every fan base has shitty fans. So like, just what is your thoughts on like even Clay mentioning it, and then let alone Draymond's wife? Panos, what do you think? Did you think it was funny?
Yeah. I mean, his wife brought up like the tweet where like, oh, these fans are saying F you, Draymond in front of kids. But dude, literally post-game press conference, his kids are sitting like to the left of him. And he's like, how do you think you did, Draymond? Play like shit. I'm like, and then the video you're talking about where that lady was like saying something to LeBron, it was pretty bad. But like, and then they interviewed Clay's like, I guess his feelings got hurt or something, you know, like, and they were saying how Boston fans were classless pretty much. But like, dude, like you said, every fan base for the teams, there's always those crappy fans, right, that are going to give you all this trash talking. And I was kind of like shocked that Charles Barkley didn't even throw his mug back at one of the fans. Like, dude, they were throwing trash up there. Like, I mean, what if it wasn't clothes or like paper or whatever it was? It could have been worse. But yeah, every fan base has those crazy fans that like to cuss people out and go a little further. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. I still fucking hate Draymond, so he got what he deserved.
It's okay. I hate the Lakers, baby, and the Celtics. And you're a fan of both, apparently. So, all right, let's switch gears real quick. So I want to look at the box score just real quick before we go into our predictions for the next game. So let's start off with the Warriors. So Wiggins, 40 minutes, 18 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 7 for 16, not too bad. 1 for 6 from 3, which isn't really great, but he played pretty well. Like he was pretty effective offensively, especially in the first half. Klay Thompson had one of his bounce back games, right? 1 game per series. Neil has been mentioning unfortunately, they won all those games where Clay, was scoring in the 20s. So he had 25 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 7 for 17, 5 for 13 from three. Not too bad. It just sucks that they wasted a Clay game. I feel like, right? I'm rooting for the Warriors to win the finals. So it's kind of demoralizing where he gave that effort. Like, is it sustainable? I don't know. We'll see. But for them to lose a game where Clay showed out like that, I think that's
especially when they came back from a 17-point deficit to take the lead. Like, as soon as Golden State came all the way back and took the lead, you're like, this is danger time for Boston, and Golden State had a real chance to win it, but you score 11 points in the fourth, you're not going to win.
right. Yeah, it just sucks that no one else helped really besides. So Curry, 31 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 12 for 22, 6 for 11, man. He's shooting like 50% from three in these three games, excuse me.
On a lot of volume.
On high volume, like it's insane. Like he needs support. Draymond, 2 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 for 4, 0 for 2 from three. We already talked about that. Looney, surprised he only played 17 minutes, especially when they're getting dominated on the board. So 6 points, 7 rebounds in 17 minutes. Not sure why he didn't get more run. He could have been helping on the glass. Jordan Poole, 10 points off the bench, and pretty much that's it. Like Porter didn't do much. Gary Payton still looks like he's hurt and rusty. On the Celtics, we know Jaylen Brown, he kind of pulled a Houdini in the second half. He seems to be doing that a lot. And like first half starts off really hot. Had 17 points in the first quarter. Hit 10 points in the remaining 3 quarters after that, right? 27 points, still effective, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 9 for 16, really good, 4 from 8 from three. He pretty much started off the game really hot, gave the Celtics that advantage. And then Jason Tatum shooting pretty shittily, I feel like, from a field goal percentage wise. But he stepped up big time in the second quarter, right? He definitely was a big factor. He had 26 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 9 for 23 though, right? And 23 for 9. But a fun fact, in the playoffs, Tatum is the leading scorer and leader in assists.
I was going to say assists. He's been really big in that game 1 too. He had set a career high.
Yeah, he did. And then Marcus Smart, bounce back game. We mentioned 24 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. First time that in 30 years or so, I think it was it Cooper. You should know this, panels. You probably don't know this because you're not a real Laker fan. Michael Cooper, James Worthy, Magic Johnson, the first time 3 players in the playoffs had 25-5 in the finals. So spectacular comeback. Horford, 11-8-6, pretty big. Time Lord, 8-10, 4 blocks, 3 steals, really great. Grant Williams had some good moments. So yeah, really, really good bounce back game from the Celtics. So last question, I'm going to ask you, Dime, who is your X factor on both teams for the remainder of the series? So if Celtics want to win, Neil and I had our opinion in the last pod. I said Horford, he said Smart. Who do you think Celtics X factor needs to be in order to close out the series? And for the Warriors to come back, who do you think their X factor needs to be?
Boston, it's looking like Smart. It seems like when he plays well, they're just a totally different team because I think he's done a really good job of turning into that. A lot of Celtics fans and people were saying for the last couple of years, they lack a true point guard. And Marcus Smart may not be the truest point guard, but he's done a really solid job of getting better in that department. If he just keep the turnovers down, he makes good reads. He's a good passer, and he has the ability to get to the rim as well. And we saw that last night. So I think he's done a really solid job with that. And obviously we've seen him mature a little bit as well. Like, for example, the first game of the playoffs, making that pass to Tatum for the buzzer beater, which he probably wouldn't have done in previous years. So I'd say Smart is my X factor for Boston. And then for the Warriors, a lot of people were talking about Wiggins coming into the series, but I don't think he is, because I think he's actually been very consistent throughout the playoffs. It's Draymond. Very clearly it's Draymond. When he plays like ass, they don't win. He needs to play well. So Draymond to me is the X factor for the Warriors. Pretty clear cut now in this series.
Makes sense, man. All right. So before we hop off, just want to do quick predictions for game 4. Neil, who do you think is going to win? What do you think the score is going to be?
I'm taking the Warriors, and I think they're going to get there by holding Boston under 100 points. So I'll go Warriors 106-99. I think their only path to victory, given the way the matchups are kind of materializing, you get a big game from Steph. Clay gets you about 20. Wiggins pitches in like he always has all postseason. and you hold Boston under 100, that's your path to victory. So I'm going to take Golden State by holding the Celtics under 100 points.
Gotcha. Panos, what do you got?
I mean, I expect the Warriors to win, and I don't think the NBA is going to allow a 3-1 lead for the Celtics. So there's no way that'll happen. They want money. Also, I think Warriors should probably look into giving Kuminga some more run, and Jordan Poole needs to go off a little bit. He needs to step up a little bit, right? Poole, I think Kuminga brings a lot of energy off the bench too. So, and he's young, athletic, so he's raw, but he can help out.
What's the prediction on the score?
Oh man, I suck at these, but I don't know if the Warriors can keep Boston under 100 with the way that the style of basketball is, like, you know, since the Warriors kind of changed it up a little bit with all their shooting. But I think it'll be like I'm just going to guess here, 105 to 112 Warriors.
Got it. Dime, what do you got?
I'm going to go with the Warriors just because I want the series to be 2-2, but it's really anyone's game. I'm going to go with 108 to 103 Golden State. But I honestly have some concerns about if the Warriors don't have a big lead going into the fourth quarter. I'm concerned about their fourth quarter offense. Like, because if Steph Curry, as we talked about earlier, is not going to get clean looks, what we've realized in this series, man, is that they lack a true second option, like a true that's reliable. Like Jaylen Brown is that guy for Boston. Yep. Chris Middleton was that guy for Milwaukee. And even Siakam in the Raptors a couple of years ago was that. But Wiggins, he's great, but he's a very good role player. That's what we've established that. Draymond, he doesn't give you much scoring, and then Clay is coming off an Achilles surgery and ACL. So, and then Poole, he may be the second best scorer, but he struggles to defend. So they don't have a clear second star to me, and that could cost them this series. It's kind of crazy to think about, but really could. So I don't know. The Warriors may have to have a solid lead, a double-digit lead going into the fourth. To me.
Yeah, anything can happen. I predicted a split. I thought the Warriors would get it last game. So I'm going to predict they'll get it this game, even though I should, for adversary or whatever, I just pick the Celtics because all you guys picked the Warriors. But I'm going to go Warriors in a close game as well. I'll say the Warriors will get 110 to maybe 103, maybe a 7-point victory. I don't know. I just feel like that Steph, hopefully, if he's not hindered by the injury, is going to understand the severity of this game, the importance of this game. I think Draymond is going to step up, at least on the defensive end, with the intensity. So I just, based on my prediction, thinking the Warriors are going to win in 6, possibly I said I might adjust to 7. I think they have to win this game.
It's a must win
in the series. It's a must win. Panos said the NBA wants to extend it. I think that's a possibility, but the Boston Celtics are at home, and the home whistle usually, the home team usually gets the best of the whistle. But yeah, I'm going to go Warriors to tie it up. And if not, then I think the Celtics in 6 for sure. If the
you want me to go against you guys? I'll pick Celtics. I'll say Celtics game 4. Warriors come back winning at home, and they lose in Boston in 6.
That doesn't change anything. You're a Celtics fan. We already know this. Yeah, Tatum likes Kobe, so you like the Celtics, which makes no sense at all because you should be a Devin Booker fan, or you should be a freaking Bam Adebayo fan, or whoever, all the freaking generation.
I do like Bam, but you can't compare him to Kevin Garnett. He's not the next Kevin Garnett.
Don't change the subject over here. Shut up. Just because I said this.
You brought up Bam. I'm talking about Bam.
I said this in year 2 when he was on the bench when we freaking gave him max to Hassan Whiteside, which was a joke. 98 million 4 years. That this guy has the potential that he could become like an Amari Stoudemire KG type guy, which he still has the potential to. Who knows? He's 24. But anyway, don't change the subject. There's so many. It's Gen Z freaking all loves. Darian, you're Gen Z, right? All you guys grew up on either LeBron or Kobe, right? Like the older Gen Zs are more probably LeBron than Kobe, or Kobe than LeBron, right? The younger Gen Zs are more probably LeBron.
Yeah.
So why aren't you a Booker fan? Why aren't you a Suns fan? You should be a Suns fan. You should be a whoever else fan. I'm sure there's a shit ton of
Kyrie Irving is one big time Kobe fan.
Yeah, Kyrie's in a different world, man. Freaking that guy's out of his mind. And then Booker, that guy, dude, Honestly, Kobe, it was on all-time defense 12 times, all-team defense 12 times, right? Booker, I don't think does anything but score. Like, I don't feel like he contributes in any other way to the team. I feel like he's just a primary scorer. He talks so much shit for what he does and what he hasn't accomplished yet. Like, what the fuck?
All right, guys, that's all the time we have today.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding, guys. We don't need to hear a fake Laker fan's opinion who's a Celtics fan. So, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. I'm not the biggest Booker fan either, as well. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today's episode. So don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We will be back this weekend after Game 4 with another preview, or excuse me, another recap and a preview for Game 5. So thanks for joining us today, Darian, as our special guest. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Panos, and thank you, Neil. I'll see you guys soon.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
See ya.